Earth did not always look like this. The blue oceans, the green forests, the familiar continents, none of it existed long before dinosaurs walked the land, before trees reached for the sky, before birds, mammals, or even flowers. Earth was a planet almost unrecognizable. If you could travel back in time far enough, you wouldn't find jungles or grasslands. You wouldn't hear birds. You wouldn't see animals. You wouldn't even find soil the way we know it. You would find a world that feels hostile, alien, and unsettling. A planet still learning how to be alive. This is what Earth looked like before the dinosaurs. Before claws, before teeth, before fear had a face. At first, Earth was quiet, not peaceful, just empty. Around 4.5 billion years ago, the planet was a burning surface of molten rock. Volcanoes covered the land. Lava flowed like oceans. The sky was thick with toxic gases. There was no oxygen to breathe, no blue sky, no oceans filled with life. If a human somehow appeared there, they wouldn't last seconds. But slowly, incredibly slowly, Earth began to change. The surface cooled. Rain fell. For millions of years, rain did not stop. It poured endlessly, filling low areas until the first oceans formed. These were not friendly seas. They were dark, acidic, and violent. Lightning struck constantly. Meteor impacts were common. The planet was under attack from space. And yet, something impossible happened. Life began. Not plants, not animals. Something far stranger. Microscopic organisms appeared in the oceans. Simple, silent, invisible. They didn't walk, they didn't hunt, they didn't think, but they changed the planet forever. These tiny life forms began producing oxygen as waste. At first, oxygen was poison. It killed most life on Earth. But over time, oxygen built up in the atmosphere, slowly transforming the sky from toxic haze into something closer to what we know today. The sky turned blue, oceans changed color, and Earth crossed a line it could never return from. Still, there were no dinosaurs, not even close. Hundreds of millions of years passed. The continents didn't look like they do now. There was no North America, no Europe, no Asia. All the land on Earth merged into massive supercontinents that broke apart, collided, and reformed again and again. The land was mostly empty. No grass covered it. No forest shaded it. Just bare rock, sand, and strange microbial mats spreading like living carpets across the ground. If you stood there, the silence would be disturbing. No movement, no sound of life, only wind. And then plants arrived. The first plants did not look like plants. They had no flowers, no leaves, no roots. They clung close to the ground, barely rising above the surface. Moss-like forms spread across wet rock, slowly breaking it down, creating the first real soil. This changed everything. For the first time, land could support more life. But Earth was still dangerous. The atmosphere was unstable. Oxygen levels rose and fell dramatically. At times, there was so much oxygen that fires could start easily and burn uncontrollably. At other times, oxygen dropped so low that mass extinctions wiped out most living things. Life kept starting over, again and again. Before dinosaurs ever existed, Earth was already experienced that destruction. Then came the age of strange creatures, not dinosaurs, something older. In the oceans, massive armored fish ruled the seas. Some were longer than cars, covered in bone-like plates, with jaws strong enough to crush anything they bit. On land, giant insects dominated. Dragonflies with wings wider than a human's arms flew through the air. Centipede-like creatures grew longer than people. This happened because oxygen levels were higher than today, allowing insects to grow to terrifying sizes. Imagine standing on that Earth. No birds in the sky, but shadows passing overhead, wings buzzing, something watching from above. Still, no dinosaurs. The land was unstable. Continents shifted constantly. Volcanoes erupted on a massive scale. Entire regions were buried in lava. And then came one of the most devastating events in Earth's history. An extinction so powerful it nearly ended all life. More than 90% of species vanished. The oceans became almost lifeless. The land was stripped bare. Earth looked dead. For a long time, scientists believed this was the end. But life returned. It always does. Slowly, new ecosystems formed. New plants spread. New animals crawled onto land. Reptile-like creatures began to appear, experimenting with new ways to survive. The planet was changing again, warming, drying, preparing. Earth was setting the stage. Not for humans, not yet for dinosaurs, but for something that would soon dominate the planet in ways nothing ever had before. The land never stayed still for long. Continents drifted slowly but relentlessly, crashing into each other, tearing apart, reshaping the planet over millions of years. Mountains rose where oceans once existed. Seas flooded lands that had been dry for ages. Nothing felt permanent. Before the dinosaurs, Earth lived in a constant state of experimentation. Life kept trying new forms and failing. The world had entered a time known for extremes. Temperatures swung wildly. Seasons were unpredictable. Storms were violent beyond anything humans have ever witnessed. There were no grassy plains, no flowers, no familiar trees. Instead, vast stretches of land were covered in low, tough vegetation. Ferns spread like green waves. Tall, spore-producing plants formed dense forests that felt more like alien jungles than anything alive today. The air felt heavier, richer in oxygen. Breathing would feel strange, almost intoxicating. And that extra oxygen fed something unsettling: size. Animals began growing larger than life. In the oceans, massive predators ruled waters that were dark, warm, and crowded with unfamiliar shapes. Sharks existed, but they were not dominant yet. Other creatures filled that role, some with crushing jaws, others with spiral teeth, others with armor so thick predators avoided them entirely. On land, reptiles began to rise. Not dinosaurs. Not yet. These were early relatives, rough prototypes. Creatures testing new body plans, stronger legs, thicker skin, better lungs. Some walked low to the ground, moving slowly but steadily. Others stood taller, lifting their bodies away from the hot surface. This was a world learning how to walk properly. The land smelled different too. There were no flowers to perfume the air, no fruit, no decay as we recognize it. The scent was damp, earthy, sharp. Rotting plants released clouds of spores into the air, making every breath feel thick and dusty. Then something critical happened. Earth began to dry. For millions of years, much of the planet had been wet, swampy, and unstable. But as climate shifted, huge regions became arid. Forests retreated, open land expanded. And with that change came a new challenge. Creatures that relied on water struggled. Those that could survive dryness thrived. This pressure forced evolution to accelerate. Eggs developed tougher shells, allowing animals to reproduce away from water. Skin became thicker, better at retaining moisture. Lungs became more efficient. Life was preparing itself for dominance on land, but Earth had one more test, one final purge. The planet entered its greatest extinction event ever. Volcanoes erupted on a scale almost impossible to imagine. Lava covered millions of square miles. Poisonous gases filled the atmosphere. Oceans warmed and lost oxygen. Life suffocated, burned, starved. Over 90% of all species vanished. The land before the dinosaurs was almost wiped clean. Forests collapsed. Oceans emptied. The world fell silent again. For a moment in deep time, Earth looked broken, empty, scarred. But once more, life returned. The survivors spread into the open spaces left behind. With competition gone, evolution moved fast. New creatures appeared. Stronger, faster, more efficient. Reptiles diversified rapidly. Some grew longer legs. Some developed sharper teeth. Some learned to regulate their body temperature better than anything before them. The land became louder. Footsteps echoed across dry ground. Movement became constant. Predators and prey began chasing each other in open spaces rather than hiding in swamps. This was new. This was important. Earth's surface was no longer dominated by plants alone. Animals were claiming it. Still, the world would look strange to us. The sky held no birds. The nights were darker. Stars burned brighter without modern atmospheric conditions. And when the wind blew, it carried no familiar sounds, only the rustle of massive fern forests and the distant movement of creatures we would not recognize. Then came the shift. A subtle change at first. Some reptiles began standing more upright. They moved differently, more balanced, more efficient. Their hips changed shape. Their legs moved beneath their bodies instead of to the side. They could walk longer distances without tiring. They could chase. They could hunt. The Earth didn't know it yet. But the age of giants was approaching. The world before the dinosaurs had shaped them. Every extinction, every climate disaster, every failed experiment. It all led to this moment. Something changed in the rhythm of the planet. It wasn't sudden. There was no single moment you could point to. But Earth crossed a quiet boundary. The world that existed before was fading, and a new one was forming. The climate began to stabilize in ways it never had before. Long stretches of warm weather spread across vast regions of land. Ice retreated, seas rose and fell more gently than in earlier ages. For the first time, Earth felt ready. The land was no longer dominated by endless swamps or violent volcanic fields. Open plains expanded, river systems carved predictable paths, forests grew taller, denser, and more complex. Life responded immediately. Plants spread rapidly, covering bare ground, locking soil in place, and creating stable ecosystems. Ferns, cycads, and early conifer-like trees formed massive green expanses. These plants did not flower. They did not produce fruit. They relied on wind and spores to reproduce, filling the air with drifting clouds of life. The land smelled alive, and with stable plants came stable food. Herbivores grew larger to process tougher vegetation. Their bodies became heavier, stronger, better suited for long-distance movement. Predators followed. But now, something about these animals was different. Some reptiles had developed a new posture. Their legs were positioned directly beneath their bodies, not splayed out to the sides like earlier creatures. This single change transformed how they moved. They could run. They could breathe while moving. They could chase prey across open land without collapsing from exhaustion. This was revolutionary. These early dinosaurs didn't arrive as monsters. They arrived as small, agile survivors. Quick, alert, efficient. They moved through a world still full of older creatures, massive reptiles, armored herbivores, and predators that had ruled for millions of years. At first, dinosaurs were not dominant. They were competitors. They shared the land with terrifying neighbors. Huge crocodile-like hunters stalked rivers and plains. Some stood taller than a human, armed with crushing jaws and armor-like skin. These creatures were apex predators long before dinosaurs challenged them. The early dinosaurs survived by being different. They were faster, smarter, more adaptable. When environments changed, dinosaurs adjusted. When temperatures shifted, they endured. When food sources changed, they found new ones. And Earth kept changing. Continents drifted further apart, creating isolated regions where evolution took unique paths. Sea levels rose, flooding coastal areas, then retreated again, leaving behind fertile land. With every change, dinosaurs diversified. Some grew longer necks to reach higher vegetation. Some developed sharper claws and teeth. Some stayed small, fast, and alert. The planet became louder. Footsteps thundered across plains. Vegetation shook as massive bodies moved through it. Predation became intense. The chase became central to survival. This was the beginning of dominance. But the world was still unfamiliar. There were no grasses, no flowers. The colors of the landscape were darker, deeper greens and browns. The forest felt heavy, humid, and ancient. And the sky was empty. No birds cut through the air. No familiar calls echoed overhead. The only flying creatures were insects and early reptile-like gliders, moving silently above the canopy. Yet, hidden within some dinosaurs was something extraordinary. Feathers. Not for flight. Not yet. These early feathers likely provided insulation or display, helping dinosaurs regulate temperature or attract mates. This small innovation would later change the entire planet. As millions of years passed, dinosaurs grew larger, much larger. Some evolved into giants that shook the ground with every step. Others became specialized hunters, balanced perfectly for speed and power. They filled every major land ecosystem. By the time humans would one day exist, dinosaurs had already ruled the earth for longer than mammals ever would. But none of this could have happened without the world that came before them. A world shaped by chaos, by extinction, by relentless trial and error. Earth before the dinosaurs was harsh, unstable, and unforgiving. It forced life to adapt or disappear. And dinosaurs were not a miracle. They were a result. They were what happens when life is tested again and again until only the most efficient designs remain. When we look at the world today, it feels permanent. Oceans seem fixed. Continents feel solid. Life appears stable. But Earth's deep past tells a very different story. The planet that existed before the dinosaurs was not a peaceful prelude. It was a brutal testing ground. Everything we recognize today, forests, animals, even the air we breathe, was shaped by that ancient world of chaos, collapse, and recovery. Before dinosaurs ever took their first steps, Earth had already survived multiple near-death experiences. Entire ecosystems rose and vanished. Life was wiped out and rebuilt again and again. Each extinction cleared the board. Each recovery rewrote the rules. The dinosaurs did not arrive by chance. They inherited a planet that had been refined by disaster. The soils they walked on existed because early plants had broken down bare rock. The oxygen in the air existed because microscopic life had transformed poison into breath. The stable climates they thrived in existed because the planet had finally settled into a rhythm after endless upheaval. Earth, before the dinosaurs, created the conditions for giants. And those conditions still matter. Even now, the way continents move today follows patterns set hundreds of millions of years ago. Ocean currents that control modern climate were shaped by ancient landmasses drifting apart. The rise and fall of oxygen levels in the past still influences how large animals can grow. The shadows of that ancient world are everywhere. Dinosaurs dominated the planet for an astonishing length of time, but their rule, like everything before it, was temporary. Another catastrophe would come, another reset, and from that reset, mammals, small, quiet survivors, would rise, just as dinosaurs once did. This is the lesson Earth teaches again and again. Life does not progress in a straight line. It advances through destruction. The world before the dinosaurs proves that survival belongs not to the strongest, but to the most adaptable. The creatures that thrived were not the biggest or the most terrifying at first. They were the ones that could change when the planet demanded it, and Earth will demand it again. One day, the world we recognize will look just as alien to future life as that pre-dinosaur Earth looks to us now. New landscapes will form, new dominant species will rise, and the memory of what came before will fade into stone and sediment. The planet does not remember, it moves on. Earth before the dinosaurs was not just a chapter in history, it was the foundation of everything that followed. A reminder that our world is not finished, it is still becoming.